So take a look at this picture. What I'm trying to say here is that if you have a Lamborghini, try not to drive it where you can get stuck with 1,000 sheep. It's a Lamborghini, so use it where you're supposed to use a Lamborghini. So my name is Tzvika. I'm working at Convertro. I'm a DBA, part of the DevOps team. I'm working with Vertica for the last 4 or 5 years. Before I had a lot of experience with Oracle. But enough about me, let's start. So in the next 20 minutes, I will show you what are we doing in Convertro, why we chose Vertica, and then I will talk how we load into Vertica, how we query, and not all good, so I will tell some stuff that you need to be aware of. And lastly, I will give a couple of tips from our experience. So in Convertro, we are helping marketers to spend their marketing budget on the most efficient channel in order to increase the ROI. If you think about it, it's like a basketball game, which until now what happened is that only the last player that scored the basket got the 100% credit for it. But in reality, we know that a basketball is a team game, and each player had some kind of a contribute to this basket. Some less, some more. And we in Convertro, we know to give the right amount of credit for each player. In order to do this, we need to analyze huge amount of data, to do some machine learning and complex analytics. Vertica is pretty good at handling complex analytics, and we are using it. I will show you it now. So this is our data flow. It's a high-level overview. As you see, Vertica is in the middle, and the process is like we are getting online and offline logs from our tag servers, processing in Hadoop, and then we load them into Vertica. We have 2 clusters. 2 production clusters. One is more batch-oriented for our reports. It's not query time critical. It's not very sensitive to time. And the other one is dashboard, which is a front-facing cluster, and it's very sensitive to query time. If we drill down into our production cluster, sorry. So we are loading both the batch and the dashboard cluster at the same time. It's kind of an active-active. It's not a real active-active because, as I said before, we are trying to get the most best predictable customer experience on the dashboard. So what we are doing is we are aggregating the data in the batch cluster. It's a very hard process. And then we just copy the data into the dashboard cluster. We have also the privilege to stop the ETL or stop the load into our dashboard while we at the US business hours. Our cluster are about 60 terabyte each compressed and 150 terabyte not compressed. Our top clients are about 1 terabyte each. And after we aggregate those clients, it got to 200 or 300 gigs. And think about it, we need to scan sometimes those 10 billion rows or 200, 300 gigs and give results in a matter of seconds. And for the most complicated queries, we need the max 5 seconds. And Vertica is doing it pretty well. How we load? So first, I just want to say that Vertica can handle huge files. 3 years ago, Facebook did a POC, and Brian here was the guy that did the POC. And they loaded 35 terabyte per hour. It's enormous, and it was 3 years ago. So I'm afraid to ask, what is the rate of the loading there now? So Vertica can handle huge files. Try to run big bulk as much as you can and spread all those files on all over the cluster in order not to overwhelm one node. If you will consume all the resource for one node, you will start to see a dramatic decrease in query performance and also in loading performance. Vertica has several connectors to Hadoop, as said before. We built our own Hadoop loader for two reasons. One is that at the time we built it, the HDFS connector was not that good. It has a lot of bugs. I'm sure it's very good now. And the other one is that we can control, or we wanted to control every aspect of the loading, and I will show it now. So if you have a look on the left side of the slide, this is the most important thing. We can scale up or down, depends on our business needs, if it's a top priority client or not. And then we can, the right side is a very serial operation, but very fast. So on the left side, we can control how many parallel loads will be on the entire cluster, how many copies will be on the entire cluster, and we even can go deeper for per each node. We can control parallelism on each node. On top of it, we can decide what is the size of each load in gigabyte or number of rows, and then we can scale up or down based on our needs. Our loading is about 10 to 15 billion rows a day. And once we have a backlog or we have an issue or we need a client because, I don't know, some kind of a business issue that we need, we can go even more with this process to even 40 billions or more. So how we query? So first, Vertica can handle a star schema. It's not that it can't. But as I said, in the last or the first slide, if you have a Lamborghini, try to use it as a Lamborghini. So use the compression or take advantage of Vertica compression and take advantage of Vertica column store architecture and denormalize everything that you can. I think that most data architects will agree with me that changes in data model are a game changer. And you will get the most performance boost if you will change from a star schema to denormalize. And Vertica can handle denormalize because it's a column store database. If you're moving from a row store to a column store, like Vertica from Oracle, MySQL, or Postgres, you will get out of the box improvements. We did a simple test. We loaded our conversion table, 1 month of data from Oracle, which it got to 420 gigabyte storage space. And after we compress it in Oracle, which is a hard process, it got to 150. We loaded into Vertica without any tuning at all. And Vertica consumed only 21 gigs. This is a reduction of more than 70%, and most of the clients here, I think, will agree with me. When you're loading or when you're moving from a row store to a column store, you will get 70 or even 80% reduction in your storage. But the storage is not that important. Think about it. If you need to scan 20 gigabyte, or you need to scan 500 or 150 gigabyte, you will get from it also the performance boost, and this is just in I/O. You will get also the benefits of sorting and other column store advantage that Vertica has. MMM stands for measure, measure, measure. We are trying to measure everything in Convertro IOL. What we did, we created a repository. Now there is a data collector repository, but we built our own. And we get all the metadata of Vertica into our repository. We get all the queries, how many resources they consume, all the logs and CPU, whatever you think of. Then we can analyze it and do some trend analysis, anomaly detection, and to see what the size of the cluster was, or to do capacity planning. Query is not that simple, because every query in Vertica is unique. It's not like that has a bind variable. So what we wanted to do is to group similar queries into one bucket, and then on top of this bucket to analyze those queries and to do some anomaly detection and alerts on top of it. So what we did, we parsed every query that Vertica had, and we removed the data value from the filters. So we had each bucket had filter equal none, except two filters which were the client and the date range. So we have buckets per each client and per each date range, and then we are able to analyze those buckets and to give insight or to be more proactive. Hydro is another tool that we developed in Convertro. It's an open source tool. Hydro is a smart topology layer, and Hydro decide from where do you get the data, how do you get the data, and what kind of a business logic you are going to do on top of this data before you return it into the client. And it needs to do it in real time, so it needs to be very, very fast. For example, this gentleman on the left is trying to understand how well his campaign went. What is the ROI that it gets? So it connects to our dashboard, and he fires some query. Behind the scene, Hydro kicks in, and the topology says, go to Vertica, go to this table, don't scan the entire table, just do a sampling on this table. Then with this result, get also metadata from MySQL, and before you return it to this client, do some kind of a business logic because it's a top priority client, do some other things, and then return it to the client. Hydro is helping us not only on the front-end side, but also the back-end side. A short story about this is one of our biggest clients, we needed to rebuild his entire data. And it took about 27 hours, which was unacceptable for us. So what we did, or what Hydro did, is remove the complexity from the back end and move it into the front end, but we added really small overhead, which was about 0.2 seconds for each 10,000 rows in our dashboard. So if you're familiar with dashboard, you know that you will not get a lot of time 10,000 rows. So this kind of a small overhead was acceptable for us, while at the back end, we removed the complexity and we decreased the number of hours from 27 hours to only 9 hours. So Hydro is helping us really a lot, on this. So there isn't a perfect system, and also Vertica is not perfect. You need to be aware of, if you have high concurrency queries, very short queries like dashboard queries with high concurrent users, you will start to get a decrease in performance once you reach the first query will be sub-second, the second will be sub-second, but the 10th and the 20th will be even more than a minute. So you need to be aware of it. We are using the Hydro to help us with it. Vertica has some cool feature now. The routable queries in 7.2, it's pretty nice. It supports SQL also, so maybe you can use it. Another thing is the delete and updates. It's not that Vertica cannot do delete and updates. It's just that you need to be aware of this impact. And if you're doing a lot of delete and update, you will get hurt on query performance and also in recovery time. So just to be aware of this. So lastly, let's see some tips. So ROS pushback or too many ROS error. Who got this error? I think everyone got this error, even us, because before we had a good monitoring on it. So this is the situation. You are starting to load to some kind of a table. You are loading, and then you get to the ROS or the number files limit, and you started to get errors. Now you cannot insert anymore, and the pressure is going up. What do? You just need to wait for Vertica to merge out all those containers, all those files into one file or several files. It can take a lot of time. What we did, we have the same situation, and what we did was we took the partition with the most number of files in it, and then we just moved it. There is a command to move a partition to table. So we move this partition into a new table, and then we have free space, and we can continue loading into the original table. At the background, we merge or we consolidate the new table, and after we finished, we moved it back to the original table, and we were able to load and not wait for consolidation of all the files. The second tip is about recovery. So you're doing a lot of deletes and updates, and before you are able to do a purge, a node crashed down, some kind of a network glitch or I don't know what. And what do? You just restart this node and waiting for the recovery to finish. Sorry? So, you're waiting and you're waiting, and then you are checking the status in Vertica, what's going on with recovery, and you see in the tables that it's doing an incremental recovery, replay delete recovery. It's not moving. So what can you do is this, oh, sorry. So what can you do? You just wait if you have time. This is a good solution. But better solution is to switch from replay delete into recovery by container. And how do you do this? You set make AGM now. This can cause two things. One, it will be very fast. It will switch from incremental to by containers, and you will finish your recovery pretty fast. The second one is you need to be aware of. It will need to recover the entire node. With Convertro, sometimes more than once, we recover the entire node because replay delete was pretty hard, and we knew the amount of time it will take us to recover the entire node. But the best solution here is to delete only one file. And what you do is you check the recovery or which table is doing the replay delete or incremental recovery, and then you're going to the storage container table and you check which ROS file or which file this table belongs to. Then you're going to the crash node and you remove just one file from it. Once you restart the recovery, Vertica will see that something is wrong there, and it will switch from a delta or incremental recovery to recovery by container, and it will only recover this table or projection. It will be pretty fast. So you can use it. Try it in development before. So lastly, we are having a lot of fun with Vertica. And when I wrote this presentation, I said that even Steph Curry can do it all, but I don't know, Steph Curry is not human, so he can do everything. So I just changed it to even LeBron can do it all. So use it like you use Lamborghini. Use it as you're supposed to, and that's it. Thank you very much.